The morning their mother was buried, the sky refused to open up. It was a sort of cold that didn't seek permission. It simply moved in, slid through coats, and settled in the lungs. Most days, the town of Fleetwood was quiet. Yet, that morning it felt as though it was holding its breath entirely. There was no bird song, no wind, only the shuffle of shoes on soft earth and the occasional sigh attempting to pass for a breath. 3 girls stood close to the casket, not moving, not holding hands, but bound together by something far deeper than the mirrored black coats they wore and their identical braids. Just 6 years old. They were born 3 minutes apart in the same dimly lit room, named after the unshakable women their mother admired. Tessa had stormy eyes and a wheel forged of iron. June, always watching and calculating yet quiet. And Elad, whose thoughts lingered halfway in dreams and halfway in realms unseen by others. They weren't crying, not due to a lack of desire, but because grief hadn't quite settled in yet. It loomed just out of reach, like a song on the tip of a tongue or a nightmare that fades as light floods in. Their mother had assured them she would be fine, even when her hands trembled too much to hold a spoon, and when her laugh thinned and her gaze stretched far away, as if she had already begun to drift. "I'll be fine," she'd said. "It's just a passing thing." But she wasn't fine. She lay inside the long wooden box now. People they barely knew had turned up to express their condolences and say she was now an angel, as if those words made any of it less terrifying. He stood at the edge of the crowd, looking as though he didn't belong. And perhaps he didn't. Tall, pale, and in a coat too sharp for someone from this town. His eyes were concealed behind dark glasses. Despite the overcast sky, he didn't glance at anyone, not even the casket, simply remaining there like a statue that had stepped down from its pedestal. The girls were the first to notice him. All 3 did. None of the adults appeared to register his presence, or, if they did, they feigned ignorance. But the girls lacked that luxury. Children observe what adults tactfully sidestep. Tessa narrowed her eyes and shifted her weight. June reached for Elad's hand without even being aware. Elad, or Elodie, tilted her head and stared right at him. Unblinking, she wasn't scared, merely curious. As the final hymn faded away and people began to disperse toward cars and awkward conversation, the man stepped forward, not to speak, not to weep, only to lay a white envelope on top of the casket before he left. No words, no name, no backward glance. Tessa observed him walk into the woods behind the cemetery, as if he had emerged from nowhere and was returning there. June kept her eyes on the envelope, while Elodie looked up at the sky and whispered, "He's not finished." Their Aunt Harper snatched the envelope before anyone else could. Without opening it, she shoved it deep into her coat pocket, as if it were something volatile. She didn't say anything either, not to the girls, not to anyone, only tightened her jaw and ordered them into the car. The house felt strangely unfamiliar without their mother. Everything inside seemed hollowed out. The warmth had departed with her, taken by the silence that followed them from room to room like smoke. Harper moved in that same day. She was precise, confident, and, above all, unapologetically in charge. The girls knew she loved them. It showed in how she brushed their hair and ensured there were fresh sheets on every bed. However, her love was the strict kind. It came with early wake-up calls and bins labeled for everything. The house transformed into a schedule, not a home. Naturally, Tessa rebelled first. She asked questions that Harper chose not to answer about the man at the funeral, about the envelope, about the absence of pictures of their father in the house. June didn't ask. She observed. She began writing in a notebook she kept hidden behind the headboard, dates, times, reactions, almost as if she were solving a mystery no one else even recognized existed. Elodish Elodie started to draw, page after page. It was always the same man, the same coat, the same shadowed eyes. Sometimes he appeared standing in the snow. Other times, he seemed to be looking down at something, perhaps the casket. Perhaps not. She always used pencil and always smudged the lines, as if fearful of what it would mean to make him real. 3 nights after the funeral, Tessa discovered the envelope. She hadn't searched for it, but it was there, tucked behind a pile of legal papers in Harper's briefcase. She didn't open it. Instead, she took it to June. The two of them stared at it for what felt like a long time before June finally whispered, "We need to know." Yet, when they asked Harper about it, she snapped, "That man is no one." Her voice sharp as a blade. "He doesn't matter. He left a letter." Elodie mumbled, "He left nothing worth reading." Harper said, "End the story." But it wasn't the end, not for the girls. Later that night, Harper sat on the floor of her sister's room, her back to the bed where the girls had once piled in to listen to bedtime stories. She opened the envelope with hands that trembled more than she wished them to. She read the letter once, then twice, finally, pressing it to her chest. She murmured, "Not now. You don't get to do this now." Then she ripped it in half. The next morning, she smiled as though nothing had happened, but the girls understood better. Children always do, and when Elodie sketched him again that night, this time placing him alongside their mother in the drawing, though they weren't touching, she whispered to the paper, "He's still here." A week went by. Then, too, the envelope was never mentioned again, but the memory of it settled into the house's walls like dust no one bothered to wipe clean. Harper kept the girls busy. Schoolwork, chores, organized quiet time. But the rhythm didn't convey care. It felt more like distraction, like containment. Even their meals were perfectly balanced, protein and starch. No desserts unless it was a holiday. Tessa started waking up early, earlier than Harper. She would sit at the kitchen table in the dark, sketching things in a spiral notebook she claimed was for homework. Maps, escape plans. Her drawings were unlike Elod's. They were precise. Practical diagrams of getting into the attic without creaking the floorboards. Paths from school to the library where the internet could be accessed without Harper knowing. Elodie still drew the man. Always from memory. Always alone. In some sketches, his hand reached toward something. In others, he appeared to be walking away. But she always gave him a shadow. June started cataloging every item in the attic. She realized Harper had boxed away much of their mother's life, but she hadn't understood just how much was hidden. It was a whole museum of silences. Then, beneath an old quilt in a shoebox, they found it, a letter addressed their mother from someone named L. Emery, postmarked nearly 7 years prior. French stamps, handwriting unlike any they had seen before. The girls huddled together on the cold floor, reading it by flashlight. It wasn't a love letter per se, but rather a question, a plea, asking why she hadn't written back, inquiring if she was okay, expressing that he missed her voice, the way she laughed when she was nervous. One line was underlined twice. "If there is more than silence between us, tell me what it is." Tessa read it aloud. Her voice wavered only once. June copied down the return address. Elodie whispered, "He didn't know about us." That night they wrote back. The letter was simple. "We are Tessa, June, and ELO. Our mother was named Miriam. She passed away last month. We believe you knew her. We don't know who you are, but we think we might be part of you. If that's something you want to know more about, we're here." They used Harper's typewriter, leaving no return name, only the address of their small local library's P.O. box, a box the librarian allowed them to use as long as they remembered to return the books on time. The letter traveled for days, then weeks, and finally something arrived. It was June who spotted it first. A new envelope. Not like those from Harper's Job or the utility company. Cream-colored. Heavy. Foreign postage. Addressed to T.J. care of Box 141. They waited until after dinner. Waited until Harper was in the den, watching her crime shows with the volume turned down too low to make out the words. Then, under their old quilt, they opened it. Inside was a letter handwritten in careful English. To the three who wrote to me, I was not expecting your words, but I have read them more than once. Your mother, Miriam, she meant something to me that I never found again. If what you say is true, if you are her daughters, then I would be honored to know you. I'm not sure what you hope to find in me. I do not know what I can offer after all this time, but if you want to speak, I will answer. I live now in the north, in a village near the sea. Please write again. L. Emery. They didn't cry, not then, but they were quiet in a manner that felt like breath held beneath water. He hadn't uttered the word father. He hadn't confirmed anything, but he hadn't denied it either, and he had replied, which was more than they had anticipated. In the weeks that followed, they wrote again. This time they told him their full names, shared stories about Briar Hollow, and how their mom had sung show tunes while folding laundry. They mentioned how Elodie still hummed them sometimes, even when she wasn't thinking. They didn't inquire about why he left. They weren't ready for that yet. Slowly, letters came back, always handwritten, always with precise language, as if every word had been weighed before appearing on the page. They discovered he lived alone, taught part-time, had a crooked fence in his garden that he never troubled to fix because it reminded him that perfection was never the goal. He asked about them, what made them laugh, what frightened them, whether they had pets, whether they enjoyed thunderstorms. They shared stories about the night their mom allowed them to stay up to watch a meteor shower, falling asleep on the roof, about Tessa attempting to ride her bike with her eyes closed and crashing into the lilac bush, about June once keeping silent for an entire day just to see if anyone would notice. He didn't offer advice, didn't pressure. He simply listened, and somehow, through ink and paper, he conveyed to them that he was there. One morning, a package arrived. It wasn't large, wrapped in brown paper, with no return name. Yet they were aware. Inside were 3 small leather notebooks, one violet, one forest green, one soft gray, each tied with a ribbon and labeled with their name in delicate handwriting. Inside the front cover of each was a note. For your thoughts, your drawings, your questions, I will keep reading. Harper didn't speak much about the letters. She saw them. She knew, but she allowed them to come. Perhaps because she recalled what it was like to wonder, or perhaps because she recognized a change in the girls, a quiet lift in their shoulders, a steadier sort of stillness. Then one night, after the girls had gone to bed, Harper sat at the kitchen table and pulled out a letter from a shoebox she had never opened until that moment. It was one of the last ones he had sent before their mother ceased replying. In it, he wrote, "If you ever change your mind, if there is something left to say, I'll still be here, not waiting, just open." Harper closed her eyes and whispered, "Well, they found him. Mary." They opened it anyway. And then something shifted because, for the first time, the man they had only known through paper wrote a different kind of letter. "Would it be all right if I came to meet you?" They read it over and over. He didn't specify when, didn't demand it. He simply asked. Tessa looked at her sisters and declared, "We have to ask Harper." Elodie clutched her notebook and nodded. "We have to try." They approached her on the back porch, tea steaming in her hand, winter creeping in at the edges of her sweater. They handed her the letter. She read it in silence. Then, without glancing at them, she remarked, "If he comes, he does it our way. My terms, your safety first. Do you understand?" They nodded. She gazed out at the snow-covered trees, then right him back. And they did.